Hey, what's going on, fam? It's that man, Taj Jacobs. I'm back at you once again with another video. So, first of all, I want to say shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks of the NBA for advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals, who defeated Brooklyn in an overtime thriller. Now, with that said, while the Milwaukee Bucks are celebrating their win, we are still having disparities in homeownership in Wisconsin, where the Milwaukee Bucks are actually from. So, listen, I found this article on usnews.com, and the title of the article reads Nonprofits Look to Improve Wisconsin Homeownership Disparity. And it's by Gabby Vinig and Alexa Chatham from the Wisconsin Public Radio. So listen, it reads Madison, Wisconsin, to Greg Lewis. The home was beautiful, cozy and inviting. The two-bedroom house in Milwaukee had a finished basement, 2.5 car garage, an attached apartment, and a yard. He has his eyes set on it for 42 days only to learn that the appraisal or valuation of the property was lower than he expected. Lewis thought it was going to be about $100,000 as another house on the same block sold for $130,000. Yet the appraisal only came in at $90,000, right? Meaning banks would be limited in how much they could lend him to buy the home. So he blames the difference on racism. And he is not alone. Experts and some homeowners say historic racism continues to play a role in depressing the value of black owned homes, especially in majority black neighborhoods. Some homes can be beautiful homes and the appraisal comes in short. And then you got to deal with that because they find out that it's a black person that owns it and is selling it, said Lewis, who had to take a pass on buying the house. So basically, a guy named Lewis, he was looking to buy a home. The home was going for $100,000. And then upon the appraisal, come to find out it was $90,000. And, most of the houses on the block were selling for $130,000. And this was all, come to find out because he was a black guy, just to sum it all up. So it continues. Owning a home allows families to preserve and grow wealth, increase their capacity to borrow, and lowers the cost of housing. Lower appraisals are among many barriers to building wealth faced by black Americans, Wisconsin Public Radio reported. Wisconsin has one of the lowest black home ownership rates in the country. Just 26% of black residents own their own homes compared to white home ownership rate of 72%. Experts say that historic discriminatory practices such as redlining, areas where banks refuse to lend money, and racial covenants which ban sales to black buyers have combined with modern-day racism and overall lower incomes to disadvantage black Americans, hurting their ability to buy a home. Lewis has now stalled his house hunting, discouraged by being outbid so many times. Quote, "It took a lot out of me," he said. "I went into a depressive state. Looking for a house is really excruciating, and at the end of the day, you want to find something that fits you, something that you like. So that's the hardest part." The National Association of Realtors found in a 2019 study that owning a home remains elusive for many black buyers, with 43% of black households able to buy the typically priced house compared to 63% of white households. The Center of Responsible Lending also found it would take 14 years for a black household at the national median income level to save a 5% mortgage down payment and closing costs for a medium priced house, and 11 years for a Latino family, while white income family needs 9 years to accumulate the same amount of funds. Interesting. Sheila DeCouves, maybe I'm saying that name wrong, but my apologies. Sheila DeCouves, a mother of four, struggled to find a home 11 years, unable to save enough money for a deposit or meet financial requirements for a loan. There was always problems, in quotes. There was always problems with qualifications for any type of loan or traditional lending or any type of program. So we had a really tough time trying to get someone to help us, she said. The Couves rented for years without feeling secure after experiencing homeless with her then 2 year old son. She quotes, "A lot of people don't understand because they have stable lives, but acquiring a your own place brings peace of mind to a lot of people," she said. The Couves eventually worked with Axe Housing of Milwaukee, which helps low income families purchase and fix up their own homes. The Couves said Axe Housing improved her financial literacy, allowing her to buy her own home. She quotes, "My oldest is already talking about when I'm buying my own house, so they're not talking about renting," said the Couves, who now works for Axe Housing as an office coordinator. They're not thinking about making other people wealthy. They want to make themselves stable and more wealthy. Themselves, right? Homeownership is a key metric for standard of living in several ways. Homes are often the largest single assets in the largest single asset a family owns, providing a source of wealth for current and future generations. Home ownership also provides housing stability, which can help children do better in school and provide other benefits. It is a benefit that too many black people do not enjoy. Kurt Paulson, a University of Wisconsin Madison expert on housing affordability, said little headway has been made in increasing black home ownership, which stands at 44% nationally compared to 74% for whites. Nationwide, the black home ownership rate is still not where it needs to be, and in some ways has not significantly improved since the 1968 Fair Housing Act, Paulson said. Jesus. Although housing discrimination based on race is illegal through the Fair Housing Act, Paulson said mortgage lenders sometimes deny black households loans or charge higher interest rates due to lower income and a higher debt to income ratio. Casey Lucchini Butcher is a public history project director at the University of Wisconsin-Madison who researches housing inequity. Butcher emphasizes the alarming implications of low black home ownership rates, including the ability of such families to build intergenerational wealth. Nationally, the average white household has a net worth of $171,000, which is 10 times than of the average black household's net worth of $17,150. What is happening in the U.S.? And in Milwaukee, black Americans are worse off financially today than they were 40 to 50 years ago, found Mark Levine, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee professor. Emeritus of History, Economic Development, and Urban Studies. Said Butcher, "If home ownership continues in the way that it does, and if access to housing continues in the way that it does, we are just going to see a continued exacerbation of wealth inequality and of poverty. One of the best ways to fix this is to get everybody housing. Building Intergenerational wealth is not the only challenge for black Americans. University of Wisconsin-Madison professor Chris Olds, an expert on urban planning and gentrification, said housing affordability remains a huge problem across Wisconsin, especially in Madison. One of the problems in Madison is so much of it housing is allocated to single family zoning districts, and it's quite expensive to access that, he said. Paige Glotzer, assistant professor of history at University of Wisconsin-Madison and author of a book on the history of housing discrimination, said bias still permeates the housing market in sometimes inconspicuous ways. Glotzer said a house owned by black people or situated in a black neighborhood will appreciate less in value than the exact same house in a majority white neighborhood. And it's sometimes hard to detect because you can always give a colorblind reason why you're taking away value from a house. Whew, this is heavy. Levine noted that black household in Milwaukee with an income over $100,000 is twice as likely to live in a concentrated poverty neighborhood as a white household with income under $10,000 a year, meaning even a high income does not insulate black Wisconsinites from housing discrimination. Are you hearing me, family? You hearing this article? It's a lot of discrimination going on in the housing markets, and it has been for 100 years. Jesus. Generations after the 1968 Fair Housing Act was enacted, white and black home ownership rates and conditions remain miles apart. This is especially true in Milwaukee, one of the country's most segregated major cities. African Americans are more likely to buy lower priced homes in segregated neighborhoods because of historical segregation patterns, Paulson said. A main reason for housing segregation is redlining, which began with the Homeowners Loan Corporation of 1932, when the Great Depression thrust America into a housing crisis. The federal government issued bonds to refinance the majority of Americans' mortgages. The government developed standards for which mortgages in neighborhoods it would refinance by color coding geographical areas by risk factor. Green indicated the lowest risk. All black and neighborhoods with inharmonious racial groups were assigned the highest risk color, red, which is where you get redlining. Redlining was a close collaboration between white federal policymakers, planners, and developers, Glotzer said. Redlining was actually a form of lending discrimination, she said. There are huge hurdles in terms of getting access to credit, to capital, to money, and to good banking that is still very much a huge determinant of how people can live. And that is and continues to be very much something really based on racism. Several public agencies and nonprofits are working to help black residents of Wisconsin become homeowners. Real estate agent Mo Simmons, who is helping Lewis buy a home, belongs to Take Root Milwaukee, a consortium of 50 community organizations, neighborhood groups, HUD certified housing counseling agencies, real estate agents, and lenders that help residents keep, buy, and fix a home. I should say buy, keep, or fix a home, right? And it quotes, there has been a lot of biases that have kept black people from being able to obtain home ownership. She said, but now, there's now in 2001 a lot more education and a lot more resources. and Take Root is providing that, she said. A recent Wisconsin Policy Forum analysis found that between the years of 2014 and 2018, the city of Milwaukee spent $26.4 million to help existing homeowners fix up their properties, but comparatively less, $3.5 million on increasing homeownership. The city also spent $19 million on expanding the amount of affordable housing. The think tank suggested that Milwaukee could better focus its efforts spread across 20 housing programs with no single director to boost the level of home ownership and affordable housing in the city. One resource is the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Association, created in 1972 by the Wisconsin legislature, which holds over $2 billion in assets, $2 billion in assets, and serves as a lender for state residents in need of affordable housing financing. The organization issued 2,680 loans totaling $366 million to first-time homebuyers and working families in the 2020 fiscal year. Joaquin Altoro, CEO of WHEDA, said increasingly financial institutions are identifying potential homeowners of color and helping them buy homes. He quotes, "I'm not trying to change racism. I can't do that by myself," he said. "But I can change the fact that we put 1, 2, 3 homeowners in a neighborhood." Lewis said he looks forward to the day he can finally buy a house and possibly pass that asset along to his family. He quotes, "I think everyone should own a home," he said. "That's a start to building some generational wealth for blacks." And this is copyrighted 2020, the Associated Press, all rights reserved. So listen, fam. Home ownership is very important. I know if you're out there and you're a person of color, you're black, you got all these discriminations against you, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks. And I want to encourage you, don't let it get you down. I want you to educate yourself. I want you to read. And there's this very prominent book called The Color of Law that talks about the history of redlining. I think you guys should check that out. And listen, fam, get out here, get your money, get your credit right, and just fight. We got to fight. We got to fight through all of this racism. Got to fight through all of this crap that's been put in place in these institutions. You feel me? But listen, fam, just want y'all to remember that being prepared eliminates fear, and being aware makes everything clear. Make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and it's that man, Taj Jacobs, and I'm out of here. Peace.